Hey guys. So today we have not one, not two, not three or four, but 5 Batman props that we're going to be restoring. Each one of these was made by the production of its respective film, spanning from the 1989 Batman starring Michael Keaton to Batman Forever starring Val Kilmer. Now, all of these are in pretty good condition, except for this guy here, which it's pretty obvious that he needs some work. So let's not waste any time. The Michael Keaton props are pretty straightforward and they're in really good condition. The Batarang being, I believe, in darn near perfect condition, and it may have even actually been a screen match prop that was on set but never used. It may have actually been used also. Now, because it's in such good condition, I don't want to stick any glue to it. I want to be able to remove it from the mold plate here without destroying it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down some double stick tape, and the double stick tape is going to adhere some upside down blue tape. Upside down meaning sticky side up. And I'm going to lay out a few strips of this and form a giant sheet of blue tape. The sheet being wide enough to stick both props down. I'll put a little bit of blue tape on the edges here, sticky side down. And now I should be able to just press the prop directly down on the blue tape, which is going to completely stick it to the bottom of the mold base. And when it comes time to pull it out, I won't damage it. I hope. Here is the Kilmer emblem. It's in fairly good condition, and the original hero prop was in 2 pieces, the bat going on top of the oval-shaped plate. But this one, I believe, is a secondary casting or some kind of stunt casting. It's looking pretty good except for the left bat ear, which is a little bit bat damaged. Now, my initial thought was I'll throw a little bit of clay on this and just kind of sculpt it out with an X-Acto knife and a silicone brush and just kind of generally pick and prod at it until I get it into a shape that matches the other ear. But the problem is with this clay is it kind of crumbles, so yeah, it was not really a great idea. Anyway, let's go on to something else. This is the Robin symbol. Not a lot of work was done to this. It was in pretty good condition as it stands. So, what the heck, I'll just get a mold on this and let it cure up while I'm working on the other props. Don't worry, I'll speed this up so you don't have to sit through this long process. Okay, so back to the Kilmer emblem. This time I'm going to scrape away some of that damage with an X-Acto knife. What this is going to do is rough up the ear a little bit so that I can mix some Bondo and it'll stick right to it. Bondo sticks pretty well to everything, but it does not stick very well to a smooth surface. I'll take the X-Acto knife and apply the Bondo to the scraped up portion of the ear and we'll let it dry. Now back to the Michael Keaton props here. We're going to build a mold wall out of cardboard and a little bit of hot glue. Now let's go on to that Robin symbol. I think it's done. So I'm very carefully going to pry it away from the table. And I do mean carefully. And we'll slice this cardboard What I've used for the mold wall on the robin symbol is actually the leftover roll on some blue tape. I always save the cardboard rolls that the tape comes on just in case I need them for a mold wall. It's pretty much self-contained, and you don't have to glue any corners together. Now this one came out pretty good except for the tail end of the top of the R. It snapped off, but that's okay. We can glue that back onto the prototype. But it comes right out of the mold and it's not going to affect the mold in any way. So yeah, it looks good. Next up, our most drastic patient of the video, the Kilmer Batarang. Now there's some real obvious improvements to be made on this prop. One of the arms and the wing is broken off, and the wing tips are missing. Now it goes back together pretty well, but I notice as I put it back, one of the wings is actually sitting higher than the other. I'm not really liking that at all. It looks like it was just kind of glued on haphazardly, and there's also another crack on the other bat arm and a bubble that I'm going to need to fill in. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut the wings off of the arms. Now I can do this because the back side of the wings are flat, and the flat part can be sliced out with a saw and then bondoed back in. There really isn't much detail to destroy. Just get a firm brush here, and I'm going to dust off the Keaton props because they were sitting around on a shelf for a while collecting dust, and I don't want that dust in the mold. So this is a fine saw. It makes a completely flat and flush cut, and it's what I'm going to use to trim the wings off of the bat arms. You see, it allows me to get a really flat, precise cut. So here we go. I'm going to move fairly slowly, and I'm going to attack the cut from different angles so that I don't unnecessarily destroy any detail. By using the back of the wing as a guide for the saw blade, I can keep the cut really flat and precise. Now I'm going to favor the arm side over the wing because, like I said, the wing is really flat and it's easier to repair than the arm would be. So we're just about done here. Again, getting it from different angles, and there it is. Popped right off. Looks pretty good. We're going to clean up our mess because nobody likes a dirty shop. And let's test fit that arm. Yeah, looks good. So I'll repeat the process on the other side. Again, attacking it from different angles. There's some detail on the front of the Batarang body, and I don't want to cut that off. And there we go. A very successful bat amputation. We have now 2 wings and the Batarang body. So far, so good. All right, let's pour up these Keaton parts. Now, if you've noticed, I've really made this silicone rather dark, which means that I've mixed a lot of catalyst with it. And what happens when you mix too much catalyst with some silicone, as you're pouring it, it starts to chunk up on you. And then it cures in the middle of your pour. Yep. That's right, folks. There's a price you pay for being impatient, and this is it. Well, let's move on to something else. Okay, so now we have to repair the damage that we've caused on the wing from the cut, and we have to add the wing tips onto the Kilmer Batarang wings. You can see the slice made there by the fine saw, which was inevitable. So again, let's mix up a little bit of Bondo. Now it's very important as you're mixing the Bondo that you look out for something like this. Unmixed Bondo, which would be gray. That will not cure. So you got to make sure that you mix it all very, very well and there are no gray areas left, but either the blue catalyst color or the red catalyst color, whatever style you're using. Now it's going to look ugly, but I'm going to slop this Bondo on there just to help pack it into all the little nooks and crannies and bubbles. And then I'm going to give it a swipe. And as you can see, it's already starting to look a little bit better. Now this stuff cures pretty fast, so I have to work quickly. I'm going to go ahead and slop a little bit more on the other wing. Scrape off the excess. And again, give it another swipe. Already an improvement. Now let's get this broken arm onto the batarang body. A little bit of super glue, a little bit of accelerator, and we're ready to fix this guy. I'll put glue on both sides and hold it together for a few seconds. And drop a little accelerator on there. And that's it. Now notice the front detail smoothed out real nice, but the back still has a little bit of a raised area. Now we have some more damage to repair on the other side, but let's get back to the Michael Keaton parts. Okay, so this big lump of useless silicone is now cured. I'll just go ahead and peel this up and throw it away. It can be recycled for a larger mold, but, you know, it doesn't always happen. Now, if you notice, there's some bubbles in the detailed areas there. It wouldn't have been a great mold anyway, so I'm going to throw it out, and we're going to start over again. Again, folks, this is the price you pay for being impatient. Now, it's a good thing I laid out some blue tape rather than gluing the parts down, because as you can see, if they lift up from me peeling the mold, I can just stick them right back down. Okay, let's try take two. Now notice I put the right amount of catalyst in the silicone this time, due to the color not being such a rich purple, but more of a pastel or lavender color. I think that's the color, lavender, right? I don't know. Anyway, back to the batarang body. So we've got some raised crack damage area here, and I'm going to take my very fine sanding disc on my Dremel and make a few passes on it, just to knock down the raised areas. These things are notorious for tearing off lots of material in very little time, so it's good to just make little tiny swipes, passes with very little pressure at very low speed. I'll kind of file down a few other areas here that need some attention. Now I noticed something else. The head of the batarang looks pretty good in profile, but if you look at it up above, we've got some major defects that are caused by the way the two mold halves originally went together when this part was cast. Here you can see a kind of step where the two halves didn't quite line up properly, and it's equally the opposite on the other side. These will obviously have to be sanded down and filled with a little bit of Bondo and sanded again. So now we've sanded down the batarang wings, and the back sides are looking really nice and flat, but as you can see, there's a lot of Bondo built up on the front. So we're going to take our grinding mandrel on the Dremel and start sanding away this ugly looking Bondo and start bringing back some of those beautiful curves on the wing. And a little bit of hand sanding, cleaning up, and it's already looking good. Except for that little booger. Okay, so a little more Bondo. I prefer this blue catalyst Bondo to the red Catalyst Bondo. I don't know why, I think it's better. I also keep a deck of playing cards around the shop because they actually make really great spreading tools, as you'll see right here. They bend to the contours of any object that you're filling with Bondo. And you get 52 of them in a deck, plus 2 jokers. Hey, Joker. Get it? Because it's Batman. Well, anyway, before the Bondo fully cures, you can actually shave off the big chunks of it with a razor. This cuts down on your sanding time. And that's good because sanding is not really my favorite thing. In fact, it's my second least favorite thing, second only to painting, because I am not a great painter. Now let's work on getting these wingtips back in. We're going to take our pin vise here and drill tiny holes in each of the wingtips. What we're going to do is we're going to insert a piece of wire into the hole, much like rebar in concrete. We'll do this with a little bit of super glue and accelerator. And as soon as you put it in there, the glue activates with the accelerator. And there it is. You see, if I was to try to sculpt out these wingtips with just Bondo, they'd probably snap and break off the moment I tried to sand them and sculpt them into something that resembled the wingtip. This gives a lot of structure and strength to the Bondo I'll be putting on the wingtips. There we go. Nice and strong, ready for Bondo. Now I'm going to go ahead and slap the Bondo on here and dab it on in big ugly gobs, and I'm going to also do it out of focus because I'm too busy working and I can't pay attention to the camera, but you'll get the idea. So I'll start to sculpt and shape those ugly blobs into something that resembles a wingtip. It'll take a few passes, but we'll get it right. A little bit of Bondo, a little bit of sanding, a little bit of attention, and we'll take these broken wingtips and learn to fly again. I'm here all week, folks. Be sure to tip your waitress. Okay, so the prototype parts are looking pretty good. We've got our batarang body all fixed up. We've got our wings and wingtips all done. And it looks like the Kilmer chest emblem is looking pretty good as well. So let's get into this. But first, let's check out the mold for the Keaton props. All ready to go. Now, when you're working with a prop that has a high monetary value or has a certain cultural or historical importance, you sort of have to take the position of a medical doctor in the sense that you do not want to do any further damage. That's why I go to precautions like using the blue tape on this prop here. Because if I was to peel this up and snap this original batarang in half, which in some parts is only 1/8 of an inch thick, and could very well happen, I would be doing not only myself, but the pop culture community a disservice. Now let's move on to our star of the video, the batarang body, which is looking fantastic. You can see all of the damage has been repaired in the front. We'll flip it over here. The back is looking great. We've got all of our crack marks and sanding marks all filled in. And I also added some vents on the bottom on the wingtips, so that way the air has a chance to vent out of the mold when we cast the prop. We'll throw a little bit of primer on here to see how it looks in a solid color. And I got to tell you, it's pretty satisfying. Now, there are a couple of little nicks and scrapes and little bubbles here and there, but those can all be filled in on the final casting. I usually spray the props with a matte finish auto primer. And the reason I do that is because if I was to spray it with something glossy, the glossy sheen would come out in the mold. That's how much detail silicone captures. And the problem with a glossy finish is that spray paint or any other kind of paint really doesn't stick to a super shiny surface very well. So I prefer the matte finish. Now hopefully I won't screw this mold up. Hopefully. Knock on wood. And we can move on to the Kilmer cowl, which has been completely repaired now, as well as the wings for the Batarang. Again, pouring very slowly to make sure all that detail fills in and no bubbles get captured. Okay, let's carefully pry these away and see how we did. Now this one's very delicate because those little wing tips are very easy to break, and I want to avoid that. It's more than likely going to happen as I pry these up, but that's okay as long as the wing tips come out of the mold. Looking pretty good. We have a little bit of a flange to cut away there, but that's okay. Trim that away with an X-Acto knife. And let's see how these look. Now I'm gently pulling the mold away from the corners of the wingtips, but as you can see, it didn't really do that much good because the wingtips did start breaking off as I removed them from the mold. But again, it's not a huge problem because the wingtip shape is still in the mold, even though the prototype is damaged here. That's okay, we can go back and fix that later. Again, the important thing is the mold turned out well. We'll trim this excess silicone that traveled underneath the piece as we poured. The reason that we trim this is so we can make sure that there are no bubbles caught in the little tiny pointy areas of the wings. That is a very common problem in a mold that has small areas that need to fill out with resin. Sometimes the resin doesn't want to crawl into those little areas and it needs a little bit of coaxing, but if you can't see it, you won't know that it's not being properly filled. Okay, so let's move on to the Kilmer plate here. This one should be fairly straightforward. Again, I'll trim the bottom of the mold, which right now is the top. And we'll peel it away here. Yeah, looking pretty good. Again, we'll trim away the excess silicone because we want to be able to see where we're filling the resin out in this mold. Now, there were a few bubbles in the original prototype, which end up becoming little burrs in the mold, which are easily removed with a pair of forceps here, and is very satisfying to do because I don't like bubbles, not one bit. Okay, let's see how our Batarang body did. So I didn't realize it at the time, but as I was prying this plywood away from the mold in the bottom, I actually ended up, and here it is, snapping off the tail right there of the Batarang prototype. Now, it's not that difficult to fix, it's just slightly annoying, but the important thing is that the shape still retains in the mold, which we're going to slice open right now. So we want to slice this mold open so that we can get the prototype out and so that we can get the casting out after we pour it. Now I'm going to aim for the very bottom edge of the wings. That's going to hide the seam right on the very thin edge of the bottom of the wings, and if there's any resin flange to be trimmed away or sanded, it goes almost unnoticeable. And there we go. We've got the prototype out. It's in okay condition. Some of the putty and Bondo broke away and the tail, but that's all right because the mold will still retain the original shape before it broke. Now, before I start messing around with these molds, I always like to get a first casting, which is just plain old white resin, nothing fancy, and I like to preserve these as a safety cast because you never know what's going to happen. Prototype could break, the mold could get damaged, and over time, the silicone molds do shrink. It's important to get your very first casting and store it somewhere safe. I'll do the same thing here for the Kilmer Batarang wings and the Kilmer plate. And I'll use a torch to get rid of these bubbles. Looks like I over poured on one side of the wing, so I'll scrape off the excess for that. And we'll let it cure up. Now let's see how these turned out. Very nice. The surface detail is great. Nice and clean, sanded, smooth, no dings or bumps. And the Kilmer plate came out pretty good too. Okay, this one was stressful. But let's see if all that hard work finally pays off. Now as I open the mold, I have to be careful not to snap off the little vents that I put in because they are connected to the points of the body wingtips, and I don't want to break those off. Hey, looking pretty good. A little bit of cleanup here and there, but I'm happy. So the Keaton emblem is flat, which gave me an idea. As you know, I really don't like painting, and I'm really impatient, so I figured I'd take advantage of the fact that the mold is flat. I'm going to fill out just the bat and the outer oval ring of the emblem. And I'm going to go ahead and let it cure. Now I have to be real careful not to get any of the black resin on the inner part, which is going to be a different color. Now there were a couple of little specks here and there that cured onto the area where they shouldn't be, and I'll just take a silicone brush and sort of scrape them away, and magically, look at that, they're gone. Isn't that nice? And we'll pour the back side of it, which is yellow, and let it cure. Now, the Kilmer plate is a little bit different. The screen used prop was actually not black and yellow, but black and gold. So I'm going to use this Douglas & Sturgis gold mica powder, and I'm going to go ahead and brush it on the raised areas of the mold, which will in turn be the recessed areas of the casting. Now I have to be careful not to get any of the mica powder on the lower areas of the mold, which will be the raised portions of the casting, because I am going to cast this chest plate emblem entirely in black resin. And any of the gold mica powder that ends up in the lower areas will be on the surface of the raised bat symbol on the emblem. So if there's any excess mica powder in that area, I have to take a Q-tip soaked in some acetone and clean it up a little bit. And we'll go ahead and fill this guy up with some black resin. And because this is an experiment, we'll see how it works. Okay, let's pull this Keaton chest plate. Hey, look at that. Not too shabby. Now let's see if the Kilmer emblem worked. Yeah, I think I can live with that. A little bit of sanding, a little bit of touch-up paint, and I think it'll be okay. So here's the final Keaton props. And the final Kilmer props. They really turned out fantastic. I'm very pleased. Well, that's it, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this bat video. Be sure to tune in again. Same bat time, same bat channel, because I've always got some cool stuff for you guys to check out. Thanks for watching, you guys.